Would I do that to you? I got to tell you, when I joined the Beatles, I'd written a lot of songs.
What's your favorite Beatles song?
Oh, there's so many. I still love Rain.
Well, there were all those stories at the time. There's stories about almost everything.
Yeah, that's the thing.
About how you didn't get along. You had
No,
like one another.
we didn't get along. We were four guys. We had rows.
I didn't like it, but it didn't stop me playing on it, you know. I just played the way I played. I play emotionally.
He kept the beat of a generation, the steady rhythm behind the songs that changed the world. And now, at 85, Ringo Starr finally opens his heart, revealing the 5 Beatles songs that mean more to him than any others. For decades, fans have asked him the same question: what's your favorite Beatles song? But Ringo, ever the modest drummer, always smiled, shrugged, and said, I love them all, man. Yet time softens the edges of even the most private hearts. And now, as he looks back over a lifetime of rhythm, laughter, and loss, Ringo doesn't just remember the songs, he remembers the moments. The way Lennon's laughter filled Abbey Road in the early mornings. The way Paul's melodies danced in the air, effortless and eternal. The quiet nods from George across the studio when the groove was just right. These weren't just songs. They were memories. The heartbeat of a brotherhood that shaped the very soul of modern music. When Ringo joined the Beatles in 1962, he wasn't walking into history. He was walking into friendship. A bond between 4 working-class lads from Liverpool who had no idea they were about to change the world. He was the missing piece of a puzzle that had been forming since those days at the Cavern Club, when the crowd's roar mixed with cigarette smoke and cheap beer. The rhythm came naturally to Ringo, not flashy, not loud, but steady. He was the pulse that held chaos together. John once said, "We couldn't do it without Ringo." And Paul agreed. He was the best drummer in the world for the Beatles. It wasn't just about skill. It was about feel, about heart. Ringo gave their songs balance, a kind of warmth that made the music breathe. And now, at 85, when he looks back, he doesn't see fame. He sees the faces of his brothers laughing between takes, dreaming big dreams in a tiny London studio. The first song he remembers is, "With a Little Help from My Friends." To the world, it was a joyful anthem of companionship, a simple, sing-along tune that spoke to every lonely heart. But to Ringo, it was something deeper. It was a love letter from John and Paul, written for him and sung in his voice. He remembers standing in the booth, nervous, feeling the pressure of following Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band's dazzling opener. He wasn't a confident singer back then, and he nearly backed out. But John and Paul stood beside him, coaxing, laughing, encouraging him to push through. "You can do it, Ring," John said. "It's your song." And when he finally sang the words, "I get by with a little help from my friends," it wasn't just a lyric. It was a truth. Because Ringo really did get by with the help of those 3 friends, the ones who lifted him when the world felt too heavy, the ones who made him believe he belonged. Even now, when he performs it live, he feels them there beside him. John's grin, George's quiet nod, Paul's thumbs up. That song is his soul on record, a promise that friendship once found never truly fades. Then there was A Day in the Life, a masterpiece of Lennon and McCartney's genius, but also a song that tested the limits of what the Beatles could be. The orchestra swelled, the studio filled with chaos and creation, and Ringo sat behind his kit, grounding it all. He remembers how he had to follow the song's shifting moods, from haunting reflection to explosive crescendo, without ever losing control. Those drum fills, those perfectly timed pauses, became part of rock history. But for Ringo, it wasn't about perfection. It was about emotion. He felt the weight of Lennon's words. "I read the news today, oh boy," and the strange sadness behind them. Decades later, when asked about it, he said softly, "That song still gives me chills. We didn't know it then, but we were making something that would outlive us." And maybe that's what hits him now, all these years later, that the sounds they made as young men became the soundtrack of the world. A Day in the Life wasn't just a recording session. It was a moment of transcendence. 4 minds, 1 heartbeat, capturing eternity in 4.5 minutes. But perhaps the song that makes Ringo smile the most is Octopus's Garden, his own creation, born out of a moment of escape. It was 1968, and the band was fraying at the edges. The tension was thick, and Ringo, always the peacemaker, quietly packed up and left for a few days. He sailed off on Peter Sellers' yacht, feeling lost but free. As the waves rocked beneath him, he began to imagine a place of peace, a whimsical underwater world where everyone was welcome, where love replaced judgment and laughter echoed through coral caves. He scribbled down the idea, humming to himself. Later, George helped him polish it, and together they built a little dream in the middle of chaos. Octopus's Garden was Ringo's heart, innocent, hopeful, unpretentious. He always said he wanted to make people smile, and that song still does. When he hears it now, it reminds him of simpler joys, of the importance of stepping away from noise to rediscover your own rhythm. It was his way of saying, I just want peace. For me, for them, for all of us. And then there's Something. Though written by George, it holds a special place in Ringo's heart. He remembers the way George labored over it, uncertain at first, quietly determined to find his voice amid Lennon and McCartney's towering partnership. When they recorded it, Ringo poured everything he had into the drums, subtle, delicate fills that breathed emotion without stealing attention. He always said that George's writing had a spiritual quality, a longing that resonated deep in the soul. Something was more than a love song. It was a prayer. And for Ringo, it captured the tenderness of George himself, shy but radiant, humble but full of light. After George's passing, that song became a memory too sacred for words. Every time Ringo plays it now, he feels George's presence, that quiet smile, that gentle wisdom. He once said, "When we lost George, we lost more than a musician. We lost the best of us." And something keeps him close, a reminder that love, in its purest form, never leaves. The last song Ringo names is one that takes him back to the very beginning, In My Life. It wasn't his song, but it felt like it was written for every soul who ever looked back and wondered where the years went. John's lyrics were filled with nostalgia even then, but for Ringo, at 85, they hit differently. There are places I'll remember all my life, though some have changed. He's lived those words. The stages, the screaming fans, the endless tours, they've all faded into photographs now. But the faces of his friends remain. The laughter, the camaraderie, the small, unspoken moments when they knew they were making magic. That song holds the ache of time, the beauty of remembering, and the peace of acceptance. Ringo often says that he doesn't live in the past, that he chooses to live in the now, but even he admits that In My Life brings a tear to his eye every time. Because in those verses, he hears the sound of youth, of friendship, of love that once was, and somehow still is. As Ringo reflects on these songs, it's not about ranking them or even about nostalgia. It's about gratitude. Gratitude for the music that carried him through every season of life. Gratitude for the brothers who stood beside him through laughter and loss. For John, whose fire lit the world but burned too quickly. For Paul, whose endless melodies keep the dream alive. For George, whose quiet faith turned every note into grace. And for the fans, the millions who still sing along, who keep the beat alive even as the years roll by. He often says peace and love, that's all I've ever wanted. And maybe that's the secret behind Ringo's enduring joy. He's never been bitter, never been jealous, just thankful. Thankful to have been part of something bigger than himself. Thankful that the songs still play and that the world still listens. Today, when Ringo walks onto a stage, silver hair shining under the lights, a sparkle in his eye, there's still that same boyish grin from Liverpool. He lifts the microphone, waves his peace signs, and shouts, "Peace and love, everybody!" The crowd roars, not just for the drummer of the Beatles, but for the spirit of an era that refuses to die. Each beat of his drum still carries the echoes of those days in Abbey Road. The laughter, the genius, the brotherhood. And as the music swells, it's as if the past and present melt into one. Ringo closes his eyes, feels the rhythm, and smiles. Because somewhere in the hum of the amplifiers and the pulse of the drums, John, Paul, and George are still there. Together again, if only for a moment. And when the lights fade and the crowd's applause turns to memory, Ringo walks off stage knowing that his legacy isn't just in the records or the fame, it's in the feeling of connection, of joy, of timeless friendship. At 85, he's seen it all. The heights of fame, the weight of loss, the passing of time. But through it all, the music has remained his compass. Those 5 songs aren't just his favorites. They are chapters of a life lived in rhythm, filled with love, loss, laughter, and peace. And as he looks out into the night sky, whispering one last peace and love before heading home, Ringo knows something that every Beatle learned in the end, that while time may fade faces and fame, the music and the love behind it always lives on, because for Ringo Starr, the beat never really stopped. It just slowed down into the gentle rhythm of a life well lived, the steady heartbeat of a man who once kept time for the world, and who, even now, still keeps time for love.